Welcome to Migration Minded, the Dynamics 365 web series where we dig into important modernization considerations with Dynamics AX and Dynamics CRM experts to help support your cloud transformation thinking. As always, my name is Tom Wisniewski. I'm a global product marketing manager for Dynamics 365. Today we're chatting about the impact that change management can have on your organization and your migration with 17-year Microsoft MVP Steve Weaver. With over 20 years of experience in the dynamic space, Steve has a lot of great product knowledge and customer experience that he shares with us. Based out of the UK, Steve is currently an enterprise architect with Columbus. So with that, let's just get started. Hey, Steve, how's it going? Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Tom. Thank you.
So, Steve, I always like, as sort of an introductory question, to ask, through all of the implementations that you've done, what are some of the migration considerations that you have for every customer?
Okay, so for moving to the cloud, there are numerous considerations depending upon the customer, but there are several common ones that are usually highlighted per customer and project. So there are some general considerations. I'll come back to those in a second. And then there are the continual updates. And then there's the process and kind of change management that you touched on at the start. So with the general updates, with a move to the cloud from the legacy on-premise, you have the infrastructure as a service that you are buying into with Microsoft. So gone are the days of your server racks and your server rooms and your IT staff solely for ERP. Microsoft handle and manage all of that. Another consideration would be security. So in the modern cyber world where systems are hacked constantly, you're putting your hands into the Microsoft data centers, which are some of the best protected data centers that are around, rather than your own private data center or a server that's backed up to the web that's in your manufacturing plant. So those are two major considerations. The movement to a modern platform gives you the benefits of continual updates. So with the cloud, certainly with Microsoft, there are periodic updates so that you are continually on the latest and greatest piece of software, so you can leverage your investment for greater benefit for your business. So previously with Microsoft products, whether it be AX 2009, 2012 or Navision, you were on-premise and most customers would undertake an awful lot of customizations to the core system. One of the selling points of the legacy systems were that you could make it do whatever you wanted to do. The problem with that was then updating to future or later versions became very problematic and challenging and expensive for customers to undertake. So they ultimately became trapped on the version they're on. It was fine, but once the operating system started moving or the hardware started creaking or they needed new external devices, they were caught by making compromises and trying to make the best of the situation that they were trapped in. So moving to the cloud gives you the benefit of a continually updating and refreshing system. So one of the clients I worked with 4 years ago, we implemented AX 2012 globally. They're a milling company called Yamazaki Mazak. So there's probably something in your house that's been milled on one of their machines around the world. They put in 2012. I spent some time in Japan and in the UK, and they customized it extensively. But in the last 18 months in the UK, they have been rolling out a D365 re-implementation in their European sites, purely finance, but they took the approach of looking at what they'd done in the UK, what they had done in Europe as a rollout, and then they were trying to leverage some of the benefits of moving to the cloud. They already had with the Microsoft D365 field service that they'd independently implemented, and they'd seen the benefits of the flexibility, the updates, and what they could do. So they moved their ERP system and they are moving their ERP system out across Europe on a modern platform. And what they've also undertaken as that is the change management piece and the business process assessment. So I touched on that as one of my earlier points, but looking at what you're doing today, the processes, and reanalyzing it is important. So they took the stance, rather than customizing it and continually customizing it, and they would start with as standard a product as they can and build up, which then gives you the benefit of the continual updates in a more standard system that is better documented, better understood, because it is just the standard software, which if you can perform the core functions of your business on the standard software is so much easier and better to undertake from an ERP perspective.
So, Steve, change management. Can you give us a little insight into what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. So from an ERP and moving to the cloud perspective, uh, the change is really about understanding your processes, understanding what you have today, and then the journey of where you're going to in the cloud. So although if we are moving to the cloud, whether you're on an existing Microsoft AX product or not, there will be an element of change management that comes into the journey of moving to the cloud. So understanding what you do today and why you do it is important. Even though you are moving to what could be conceived as the same system, how you use it or how you use this tool is important, but it's the processes and understanding why you're undertaking the processes, because you will have implemented it previously if you're upgrading. You probably got stuck and moved some requirements or customizations to a later phase that you never got to. So reassessing where you are and understanding the current pain points and therefore where you can leverage value is important. Also, your business may have changed whilst your use of your system and how you're using it didn't really change. So reassessing business processes, value, where you can get value out of changing processes and your current pain points is really important. And when you are going through the change of the software, whether it's Microsoft or not, but moving to the cloud, there will naturally be resistance. So as human beings, we don't generally like change. We are very happy in the comfort of knowing what we're doing and how we're moving along. So you need to take the people along with you on this journey. So involving the right people, getting them bought in, making them feel like the journey they are part of, so they're not resisting it, so they are contributing, they're helping shape and mold it. So the current pain that they've got is recognized, and you are trying to remove that pain or lessen it. So all of that is important to undertake. And from a change perspective on the projects, it's about planning, understanding, organizing, and it's really a lot of admin work. So I was told a story recently, and to change it slightly, it's almost like walking into a bookstore trying to look for an Isaac Asimov book. So you walk into the bookstore, you're looking for science fiction. You go to science fiction, it's A because it's Asimov, and you can find the Asimov book. Without the preparation and planning, you're walking into a warehouse full of books, and you've got to find your Isaac Asimov book amongst thousands of books that are just set in piles. So being organized, documenting, planning makes everything so much easier. And if you do that and take the people along with you on the journey, it will be easier for them and they will contribute more, so that it's not such a resistive process, because people will naturally resist that change, consciously and subconsciously. So when we move from AX 2012 into F&O, they are fundamentally the same product. So underneath the user interface that has changed, they work the same way Lots of people will say I'm incorrect in that, but fundamentally they do work the same way despite some of the changes. So the mistake that you can make is that it isn't a change. So you are just moving from one to the other. So there is no consideration. But certainly when a user sits down from AX 2012 and they sit in front of D365, the first thing is it's not recognizable because the whole user interface is the same. So they are very different, but they are the same. And you have to take the business and the people on that journey with you.
That's great. So, where would you recommend an organization start when they, begin to implement a change management mindset or process within the business?
So it's where you are today. So a lot of times businesses will presume that they know where they are today, but when they implemented their previous system 5, 10, 15 years ago, however long ago it was set up in a certain way, and businesses change. They adapt over time. The pandemic that we've had has shown how businesses have need to flex and change their whole approach and their whole marketplace. And the systems don't necessarily change to reflect the moving and changing of the processes. So that whole reassessment of where you are, strategically where you want to go, and the kind of benefits vision. What do we want to get out of this? It's a whole reassessment of where you are. So even though the AX to D365 FO move is the same product, it is an opportunity for the business to try and get value and correct some of the issues that they may have within the business today or may have had within the software today. So a reassessment of business processes and a mapping of those business processes into systems alongside corporate strategy and benefit is where you really want to start, so that you can get some milestones, get some goals, and refer back to those goals and what you want to get out of the move to the cloud fundamentally.
And are there common challenges and or pain points that you've recognized across customers or implementations?
Yes. So the one that's across every project is data. Um, all customers, whether it's a legacy system or AX, a previous version of it, or Navision and BC, um, customers are very confident about the quality of their data. Everyone will say it's very good, they manage it very well, but fundamentally, when you get into the detail of it, that isn't the case generally. So unfortunately, in the stream of data, we as human beings are an important cog in that. And lots of people come in and contribute to those data streams and are inconsistent in their approach. So a common one would be address fields. So I'll be generic rather than European based or US based, but you can have within your architecture of your business many different systems. So you may have a warehousing system or an e-commerce system, or ERP system, or payroll systems, and they all contain different elements of data. And something that is common to all of those will be addresses. But depending upon the format of the system, the addresses will be held in slightly different structures. So the D365 F&O holds its street in one field, and D365 CE holds it in 3 fields. So between two Microsoft products, you have a divergence of how the addresses are held. You then move that out to an external CRM system, which may have, again, a different way of holding addresses. There may be different fields, there may be different field lengths. So in each different system, you get conflicts of that core data when you come to look at it holistically for the business. So each customer has an address, but each address could be held slightly differently. In previous conversations looking at addresses, I've seen some businesses hold credit control notes in Street 3. So it's not Street 3, it's a note for a particular reason, but obviously not everyone uses the street for that version. So people will then try to extract the data and find there is a note that they're not a good payer in Street 3. So having a kind of fundamental approach to data holistically within your business is key, because it is such an important part of what you do. So people use it for reporting, people use it for business decisions, use it for forecasting, for planning, and having a consistent approach to data and good control of it is critical to all businesses, even more so in the modern world. So moving to the cloud, leveraging dashboards, Power BI, it's more instant than the legacy running of reports once a week to get your sales figures. It's all much more instant, picked up on the mobile. So having accurate data is much more critical. Well, it's always been critical, but it's consumed more immediately nowadays.
Yeah. So, what's an organization to do?
It's have a fundamental review of the data. So look at everywhere that data is used within your business. So look at the data governance, look at the data profiling. Is there a master data management structure in place? There are tools on the marketplace nowadays that bring this more and more together. So you have a centralized master data. So I go back to the customer records, they're centralized, and all of those external systems start to pick from that central system. So it's created once and fed out, which that leads to more consistency of data, because there is one master source that everyone else picks from. The whole data architecture, so where you are using this data, how it flows through the different systems, so therefore what structure it needs to be in, and data management controls. So you can align these different systems so that you cleanse the data, which generally happens through an ERP solution or implementation. You cleanse the data, you get it looking pristine, you may put it through external tools that do this. And then within a week or two of live, us human beings have started creating new records. And if you don't have a data governance policy in place, you can guarantee the humans will start putting the wrong data in the wrong place or in the wrong structure. So one of the global businesses I'm working with at the moment, Essentra Components, they have, I think in their European components division that we're currently implementing in, 15 external systems. So they have an e-commerce site, a warehousing system. They integrate with different shipping carriers. They have product information systems. They have finance systems. And all of this data is moving around between all of the systems, generally through Azure Integration Services. But making all of the data talk to each other has been one of the large challenges, and the addresses certainly being one of them, because in their legacy systems, they're held in 3 different systems fundamentally. We're trying to bring them in whilst doing a rollout. So we are adding in F&O as a 4th cog to this wheel, and then trying to leverage with all the external systems whilst the other 24 entities are being rolled out over the next 2 years. So keeping all of that data aligned with good data governance is difficult. They have data architects, data reviews. They have continual reviews of their data inputs and kind of data quality, so that they are trying to recognize where data starts to shift. That we have in places tried to tie down at a field level. So we have extended it and customized some of the products to try and encourage the user to pick the right record. So in D365 sales, a lot of the address fields, when it comes out of the box, are free type. So the city and the country, you type in those records. In F&O, that isn't the case. You pick them, or you can type the city. So that was customized to enable it to be picked, and therefore it could communicate across to F&O in a standard format. It was as important that the data was standardized so that we could communicate between the systems as it was for reporting. But ultimately, those sort of elements fall into reporting. So you can do geographical reporting on sales or purchasing or spend. So having a consistency of data and having a team or department that ensure that that data is kept up to a good quality and doesn't start to slip is critical for businesses.
And so, what's the return on investment here? So we spent the time and energy to implement these policies and practices within our organization. What does it enable us to do? Compared in the cloud compared to sort of our on-premise existence.
The cloud really is about the speed of change and the updates. So the Microsoft F&O product gets updated 8 times a year. There are 2 major releases, one in the spring, one in the fall, and 6 others. And Microsoft's investment is huge in these areas. So they are bringing out new modules and new functionality at a rate that is difficult to keep up with. As a partner, it's difficult to keep up with. As a business, it will also be difficult to keep up with. That does bring with it another challenge. So businesses of the past have had IT departments that have maintained systems. In the cloud, you need to assess what is coming. So you have access to early releases. You can look at them before they're coming. You can assess what is in it, and then you can take it to the business and say, we can benefit from implementing this functionality that's coming next month. And then you can roll that out. But that is a change challenge in itself because you are thinking proactively and assessing what is coming, whereas historically you were frozen on your version and trying to get through with the existing software that you are doing. Also with the cloud, there is a whole set of tools that is now extensively available to users that can be leveraged in tandem with the cloud solution F&O. I've touched on D365 Sales and the integration that we did with Essentra into F&O. That is a standard out-of-the-box solution. So Dual Write helps the customer engagement apps, so whether it is D365 Sales or Project Ops or Field Service, talk to F&O bidirectionally. So it goes both ways. It's a out-of-the-box configuration that integrates and helps businesses and control and have systems that they can manage to talk to each other. There is also the rest of the Power Platform. So Dual Write sits on the Dataverse solution. The D365 apps sits on the Dataverse solution, and there are a whole host of apps that you can leverage and use. So with the Power Platform, Microsoft's approach to the whole concept was to allow end users to develop solutions in a kind of low code, no code. So rather than always going to a partner or having contractors or someone in-house that could potentially develop your ERP solution, you are allowing end users to create solutions outside of your main core system, but within the same architecture. That is a frightening statement because security comes into it, and you can, if you don't control it, have a whole host of apps that are created that could potentially cost money and you don't know where they are or what they're doing. So it does need management and control, but it puts power into the business's hands and the people's hands that want to do it. So at Columbus, during COVID, we didn't have many people coming into the office. But when we did start reopening the office, we needed to know who had been in case we needed to contact trace if there were any cases of COVID. And we used to have a book that was by the door that people would sign into. Now we have a Power App that people log into. So a simple facilities management app that we created. You just go in, say I came into the office on this day. There is nothing more to it to that, but we have then a data record of what's happened. Excuse me. There are many more apps that you can build. So within the F&O arena, you can start extending and building quality apps or truck. So when the lorries come in and the carriers come in, you can start recording quality within there. You can start looking at asset management or extending it. So taking pictures. Everything is outside of F&O at this stage, but if there is a solution that before may have been very expensive, you needed your partner to do it and you needed to change the code, nowadays you can leverage the Power Platform to go and build a solution. You can involve partners in this, so depending upon how far the no code, low code goes, but you can also start doing those elements yourself, which is an exciting venture into what's going to happen in the future in the kind of Microsoft world as we empower more and more users to go and do, I was going to say development, but create solutions that they need for the challenges they've got today. So with the cloud solution that Microsoft released, they have locked down the source code. So I said earlier that one of the benefits of 2009 or 2012 or the early Navision products was that you could modify it to do exactly what you wanted. 3 years ago, Microsoft stopped us accessing the base code, and this enables them to do their continual releases because no one touches the code, so they cannot break anything. But what they do is they build extension points in that we can then extend from and build outside of it. So those extension points are the conduit between any development and the base code. But the Power Platform is another leverage of that base code and triggers. So another element of the Power Platform is Power Automate, which is a workflow tool. So an event can happen within your ERP system or your CRM system, and the event could be anything. So a sales order being shipped or being put on, that event is then triggered, and Power Automate can look at it and pick it up. So it picks it up, and then you can do lots of things with it. So you can send an email to someone, you can push it to a SharePoint site, you can push it into an external system, depending what you want to do with it. It just sends little packages of code out, so a little payload that you can then pick up, leverage, and do what you want with it. Part of the challenge there is historically we were restricted by how we would customize the core system. Now we have a whole tool set that is very extensive, and it's trying to get from the customer what their pain points are. And once you understand their pain points, it's trying to pick the right tool that will do the right job. So a lot of the Power Platform tools hold the data outside of the core F&O system. That's not a problem, because if you want to do reporting, you can push that data into a data warehouse with your F&O code core data. But what it does mean is, as you're going through the requirement, sometimes it'll come out later that certain data does need to be returned to F&O, which then means it's more than just a Power Platform change. It is an F&O change as well. But that's all about data requirement, data gathering. Some of the other elements in there that are growing are the artificial intelligence. So we have invoice recognition that we can now do, and we can teach the AI in Power Platform to recognize what a invoice looks like, what the fields mean, and it can then push it into F&O as an invoice journal for you to review or to go into workflow and for you to post. So we're then making our lives so much easier, because we're taking away a lot of the manual work that users are doing today and helping them concentrate on their job by making some of the manual tasks much more automated, taking it out of our hands to put in, which also then, going back to the data, means we get a more consistent data approach, because we're cutting the human being out of that piece of work. So the AI is picking it up from the document and keying it into the system rather than an AP clerk in this instance. So the Power Platform is one of the positives, and there are so many more. So the Internet of Things, hooking up devices to pull back information to help you make decisions. So we had a customer a few years ago that was using an IoT device on the back of their refrigerated lorries to track deliveries, because they were having some issues with it. And they discovered that some delivery drivers were leaving the door open whilst doing a delivery, which then cooled the inside of the lorry and led to some issues with the product later on. And it was all about a simple Power Apps device looking at an IoT device to monitor temperature, and nothing more than that. They also had a route tracking and a route drop system that they created. So there's lots of opportunities and possibilities. There are smart factories that we can start hooking up to, manufacturing hubs, so that you are leveraging other solutions, other tools that can add value to your business and take away some of the pain points that you currently have. And it all opens up when you're on the cloud, because the connectors are so much easier to enable these systems to talk together.
So, in your opinion, why should organizations be moving to the cloud today?
So from an F&O perspective, in 7 months, the AX 2012 reaches its end of life. So a lot of businesses will want to get the security of support from Microsoft, from the authors, and get onto that continually updating platform. But also, it's the direction of the industry. So lots of elements are moving to the cloud. The investment that Microsoft have put into this area is phenomenal. The continual investments is really high, and you're moving on to a secure, stable, continually updating system. Any legal requirement changes, Microsoft will deliver. On your old legacy system, you would need to develop it or hope that Microsoft will no longer backport those elements, but you would need to develop it yourself. So you get a continually updated, managed system, which has shown a lower cost of ownership over periods of time than having your own on-premise systems, your legacy systems.
So that's really great, Steve. Thanks for those tips. If nothing else, I hope that you took from our conversation today the importance of having these proactive strategies that enable your business to both address current challenges, but then also deliver on future needs. Really appreciate your time today, Steve. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This has been Migration Minded. If you have migration questions, I highly recommend you join our Dynamics 365 migration community, where you can connect with experts like Steve there. And if you're just getting started, we have a lot of great resources around why you should move to the cloud and what those first steps should look like for your organization. Until next time, thanks so much.